Hey guys, MetalJesus here. Listen, we all agree that most mobile games, they suck. Bloated with ads, free-to-play elements, and usually weak gameplay. Yet despite most games being crap, there are some developers that actually tried to make great games for mobile, and I've enjoyed many of those over the years. However, some of you may remember Apple released iOS 11, essentially killing off support for older games. These are games either no longer updated or perhaps abandoned by the original developers. So to help preserve those digital games that I enjoyed, I've frozen in time this iPhone 6s with the older operating system and the games installed on it that I want to be able to play for the next 5, 10, 20 years. Let's take a look. Alright guys, a show of hands. How many of you are familiar with the classic games Doom 2 and Wolfenstein? Come on, get those hands up. Of course you are. These are classics for a reason. But did you know that the creator of these games, John Carmack, created RPG versions of it specifically for mobile phones and iOS? Now, I'll be completely honest with you. When I first started thinking about this archival project, these two games were the first on my list because you can no longer find them and they're so cool. Especially if you're fans of old school turn-based RPGs like, say, The Eye of the Beholder or Lands of Lore. Now, Doom 2 RPG is mostly a faithful Doom experience, but again, just turn-based. So you have inventory, you have turn-based combat, you talk to NPCs, things like that. And then Wolfenstein RPG is noticeably lighter in tone. In this game, actually, you find romance novels to read, and also you can beat up chickens and turn them into chicken dinner to give you health. Now, what's great is that these mobile versions of these are pretty much timeless. Because they're locked in that sort of late 80s, early 90s period, they're still really fun to play today. Here's something that I never expected to have to archive, and that is the Infinity Blade Trilogy. So, Infinity Blade 1, 2, and 3, they were extremely popular games, but to everyone's surprise, the series was pulled from the App Store at the end of 2018 because Epic Games said that they would put no more development time and cost towards maintaining these three games. And that is such a shame because they're so well made. Now, these games are awesome. They're basically fighting games with a lot of RPG elements added. And as you can tell, stunning graphics for the time. And what was amazing is that they really showed off what was possible on smartphones. Most people didn't realize that your iPhone could do something like this. I like how these games had great combat that is both fair and balanced and designed from the ground up to be on a smartphone with a touchscreen. And what's cool is that each game in the series just upped the ante. They had better graphics, they had more story, more details in the background. It's a great trilogy, and I'm glad I can be able to play it forever. Oh yeah, here are some favorites of mine. I love Dark Nebula 1 and 2. And the thing is, Dark Nebula was special the moment I fired up the original game. Think a top-down maze-like game where the entire game is controlled by just tilting your phone. And it works flawlessly. And level design is surprisingly clever and varied. You end up navigating moving platforms, color-coded gates. You also get the ability to bump and jump when hitting a button on a level, and there's even boss battles. And the graphics got better with the sequel. This is a perfect example of motion controls done right, and it's still a ton of fun to play today. Oh yes, I love the title of this game. It's called Bring Me Sandwiches. Now, to be fair, this is still available on the App Store, but it hasn't been updated in over 3 years. So imagine a 2D platformer, but then you mix in Katamari Damacy. You know that game where you roll the ball and you gather stuff and then it builds and builds and builds and then you can pick up larger stuff as you go along? This twist on that gameplay idea has a hungry alien oppressor wanting you to bring all the objects on the Earth, but as a sandwich that you build throughout the level. And just like in Katamari Damacy, the size of the bread is small in the beginning and only allows you to pick up small objects throughout it. But the difference between Katamari and this, however, is the platforming. So having to navigate the environment feels so much different here, and it's better for it. This is a cool take on that Katamari Damacy idea, so if you like that game and you like 2D platformers, definitely check this out. Oh yes, here is a classic Laserdisc game from the 1980s called Space Ace, of course. Now this was amazing at the time, but also notoriously frustrating to play because it required pretty much lightning reflexes or memorization to get through it successfully. Here on mobile, it has multiple difficulty options, giving you a bit more time to play the game, which is very nice if you ever wanted to experience the story. This was originally released on iOS in 2009, but since then it's continued to hit pretty much all the other formats and consoles and mobile phones, so it's not exactly hard to find at all. It's actually pretty well maintained, but I wanted to keep this copy right here on my old iPhone so I could play it forever because I think it's just the perfect version. Oh yes, Bug Princess 2. So, do you love cave shoot-em-ups like Death Smiles, Moochie Moochie Pork, or Dodonpachi? Well, you are in luck because Bug Princess 2 is amazing. Now, if you're not familiar with Cave, well, they have been making great shoot-em-ups for arcades and consoles for literally just decades now. But not everybody knows that they made one specifically for iOS. Now, Bug Princess originally came out on the Japanese Xbox 360, and it has many of the features that you love about those classic bullet hell shooters. Meaning there's lots of things to blow up, fun, colorful graphics, and, thankfully, variable difficulty options. I would go so far as to say that this is a great game for maybe players that are new to bullet hell style arcade games. This game can be very forgiving, and despite the screen being flooded with items and chaos, it's still a ton of fun, and I think most beginners would be able to finish it. Next up is Puzzle Prism, and sadly another game that's kind of lost to time. Listen, Tetris-like stacking games are a dime a dozen. I get it, and it's hard to do another one that is new in the genre and can stand out. But I feel that Puzzle Prism has enough new to make it exciting to play. You'll notice that the 3D stack auto-rotates, and the part you can drop also rotates at the same speed. You'll need to rotate and drop the piece at the top to clear rows before letting the stack get all the way to the top. Now, I get it, it's pretty standard stuff, but again, there's just something really cool about this title. Sure, the graphics look kinda like ass, but the controls are great, and the difficulty is just right. I mean, this game's got it where it counts, and that is the gameplay. I consistently go back to this when I need a new fix. Next up is a game called Horn. Now, this is currently available on the Google Play Store, but be aware it hasn't been updated since 2014. Horn is another one of those games that comes along and shows everybody what a smartphone is capable of. Basically, this is a mix of Infinity Blade style combat, but also 3D Zelda-like adventuring and puzzle solving. At the time, this game blew people away. I mean, it's a highly polished and detailed game when so many other games of the time were kind of your typical 8-bit old school adventure games. This game looked polished. And I have to point out, this game has truly excellent voice acting too.
Enough of your nonsense. I will undo the Pygon curse, and you will help me.
And why would I help you?
Because if you do not, I will find a deep, dark hole and chuck you in it, where no one will ever find you.
You wouldn't.
If you're no use to me, why wouldn't I?
Very well.
I also like how the controls don't try and emulate a traditional controller or thumbstick. Instead, you click once on your path where you want your character to go, and then he just auto walks to it. Kind of reminds me almost of an adventure style game. Again, this is very intuitive for a touch device. You can tell it was designed for the phone in mind. It has an interesting story, high production values, and now it's archived on my phone forever.
Unhand me, foul beast.
How are you alive? You're just ahead.
I am Pygon. Pygon do not live. Pygon cannot die. Life and death are curses from the mother.
This one is going to be a bit more controversial because unlike the other games in this video, I'm not exactly in love with this one, but I did feel it was worth archiving. See, many people don't remember that a proper Metal Gear Solid game was released on iOS back in 2009. Now, it was timed to be with the release of Metal Gear Solid 4. And in my mind, this plays very similar to, like, say, a Time Crisis light gun shooter would be, but just a bit more clunky. Now, I'm not gonna lie, this game isn't amazing or anything, but it's part of the Metal Gear Solid history and now is archived on my phone since you can no longer find it in the App Store. Another game with a great title, that is Monsters Ate My Condo. This is a game that you can still find in the Google Play Store, but again, it hasn't been updated since 2013. This is another insane but fun as heck game by Pickpock and Adult Swim. And as you can see here, it's its own game. So what's going on here? Well, this is a match 3 game that mixes giant colored monsters and a kind of Jenga-like balancing mechanic. Basically, you want to discard same colored condo floors to the matching monster. Now, if you feed them the wrong color, well, they get irritated and they can potentially knock over the entire stack and end your game. But if you can get 3 of the same floor colors together, well, they'll merge into one, and then you build up combos. This game is definitely weird, very wacky, and sometimes maybe even a little bit disturbing, but it's always fast and fun. It turns out that the iPhone and other smartphones are great for shoot-'em-up fans like me. So because of that, I've taken it upon myself to archive some of my favorites. I'm going to go through these pretty quickly, but to start off with, you have Shogun, Rise of the Renegade. Like so many other shoot-'em-ups, you just hold your finger down to auto-fire, but this game has a really cool mechanic that if you raise your finger, the action slows way down. That allows you to choose other weapon types, you can upgrade your current weapon, or you can fire a screen-clearing EMP. I also really dig the 3D graphics. Very cool game. Here's Raiden Legacy, and this is actually currently updated and really well supported by .emu, but again, I wanted to have an archive of it because I like it so much. This contains several great games, but I don't know what it is, but I always find myself going back to the original. What I like about the touch version is you can crank up the responsiveness of those touch controls, making it possible to just zoom around the playfield unlike any other version. It really changes the game. I would say one obvious drawback here is that the graphics are stretched to fill the iPhone screen. It definitely looks a little weird, but it plays fine. Here's another game that you can currently get on pretty much most devices, so it's really well supported, but I really like it a lot, and that is Air Attack 2. So, this is a World War II era shoot-'em-up with just fantastic 3D graphics. I like how this game has a bit of a slower pace going on, but there's still a lot to look at. This game has the ability to drop bombs on buildings and structures in the background. Basically, you just double tap your finger to drop a bomb while firing is normal. And you're going to want to do that too, because that usually nets you additional coins for airplane upgrades as well as health and other items. here's another shoot 'em up that most people have pretty much forgotten, and that is StormStrikers. And you can see here that it's no longer supported past iOS 10. Now, this game isn't necessarily anything special, but it's got nice graphics, good animation, and with this game, you try to kill off as many enemies as you can within those rings that you see around your ship. The closer you do that, the more gems you'll drop for power. So that's a quick look at the games I'm archiving on my iPhone 6s running iOS 10. But as you can see from the screen, there are a bunch more games I've chosen to back up as well. What do you think about me backing up old mobile games? I mean, am I crazy? Are these games worth preserving? I'd love to know down in the comments below. As always, guys, I want to thank you for watching my channel. Thank you for subscribing, and take care. One thing I want to mention here at the end is that it is possible to display these games on a larger screen. So for this video, I captured all the footage on my iMac, and the way I did that was using an application called Reflector, but you could also use QuickTime as well, and you can also use an Apple TV connected to your larger HD television that you might have in your living room. So again, it's a nice way to play these older games, but with a much larger screen. It was definitely very cool, and like I said, it was very easy for me to capture this footage, so thought I would just share that with you guys. Thank you very much for watching, and have a great day.